Now we're talking finally getting some nice big moves, finally got some good clarity for tomorrow. Well, it's back to work tonight, guys. Hope you made some money out there today. It's Tuesday evening. We're getting ready for another important Wednesday trading session. We get some more big news, some big earnings tomorrow morning, and some really nice big juicy moves on the charts tonight. Anytime we see big moves like this, we know tomorrow has some big opportunities. I got a lot of great trades I'm tracking for Wednesday's trading session. I'm going to cover all my favorite trades in the video here tonight. That way you get a game plan to make some money tomorrow. Before we jump in and get the game going tonight, make sure you subscribe to our channel. That way you don't miss tomorrow night's video. And if you enjoyed the video, as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed this stuff, hit that like button. Give me a shout out in the comment section. Thank you so much for sticking around tonight and watching the video. But enough of the intro, Joe. Where are the best trades setting up here for what might be a very, very good day tomorrow morning in our trade room? Boy, everything pretty bearish. Like I said, we finally got a breakout of that just nasty range we've been in over the past, boy, it seems like forever, right? But a few days here now. Big move down on the Emini, big move down on the Nasdaq, big move down here on the crude oil. Everything's pretty bearish right now. The key to at least the S&P and Nasdaq, we were range bound for, it felt like forever, but for a couple days last week, right? And so the key for tomorrow is really going to be breakout pullbacks, right? Breakout pullbacks using that prior range levels as key areas of resistance. I also want to talk about what a reversal might look like because, we got some more big news coming tomorrow. It wouldn't totally shock me if we wound up reversing back into that trading range. Now, trying to pick bottoms, trading reversals can be difficult, so I want to go over some key setups to capitalize on if the breakout pullback does turn into a reversal. So we're going to cover the long side and the short side in the video here tonight. Don't you worry about that. Over on oil, I'll tell you, oil is right at the low, right in a beautiful spot for a reversal going back up into that trading range. We're very bearish though right now on oil, and so we'll talk about how to make money going back up into that trading range. We'll also talk about how to trade that rotation back down again. And don't forget on oil, we still haven't filled that OPEC production cut target down around 75 half. So we'll have a game plan if we keep bleeding lower on oil as well. So long side trades, short side trades, everything looking pretty good. I'm getting excited just talking about this right now across S&P, Nasdaq, and crude oil. Now, before we talk about all my favorite trades setting up for tomorrow, let's make sure we all get on the same page right now. Tomorrow, of course, is a Wednesday. There really isn't, there's some decent news here tomorrow. You get the durable goods orders and international trade at 8:30 Eastern time. I don't expect that to be the big market catalyst here for tomorrow. I do expect the market's reaction to the Microsoft and Alphabet earnings that we saw only a few hours ago. They beat their numbers, but kind of an underwhelming beat from these tech companies. Tomorrow, though, we get some more big news coming before the open, right? Boeing is a big deal for tomorrow. Now, I'm not sure if you remember this, but a quarter ago, 3 months ago, Boeing was a dumpster fire in their earnings and completely crushed the market lower only a quarter ago. I think everybody will be curious to see if Boeing got their act together over the past few months. So that's definitely something we have on our radar for tomorrow. And speaking of everybody waiting, I'm sure everybody has their popcorn ready to see how much money Meta has burned through in the last few months with that big failed metaverse. I mean, they changed their name for crying out loud. So definitely curious about how that will come out. So we have plenty of earnings coming out, and as I mentioned last night, on the video, the key right now is don't get too wrapped up in what the actual earnings numbers are. The key to making money during earnings season is be aware of when they're coming out, before the open, after the close, and just trade the reaction. We're going to put some game plans together. We'll have some scenarios ready to go, and we'll see how the markets react because, of course, these big earnings, they they definitely create a big question mark here for tomorrow. Now, back to our charts, though, because after all, right, the money is made on the charts. And if you like making money, by the way, make sure you watch all the way to the end of the video here tonight, because I'm going to cover all my favorite trade ideas on all three of these markets. And don't forget, every trade I talk about tonight can be applied to your favorite market. So don't just click off after your favorite chart. I will give you a reason to stick around all the way to the end. But let's start first with the S&P and the SPY. We'll go to the Nasdaq and the QQQs, and we'll wrap it up with the USO and the crude oil later on in the video here tonight. As always, guys, these are tick charts, upper left-hand corner. You can see all the time frames in the upper left-hand corner of the chart. This is the 21 EMA, that yellow line, the 21 EMA. And as always, I do provide some higher time frame charts linked up in the description of the video here tonight. I've got some 60-minute time frames, some 4-hour time frames, which are looking very different tonight than they were just 24 hours ago, because as I mentioned before, we have finally got some big breakouts out of these weekly ranges we've been kind of drowning in, right, the last few weeks here. Don't forget, I do like to use the 60-minute as a directional filter. And boy, for the first time in quite a while, right, that 60-minute filter right now is looking pretty bearish. So grab those higher time frames if you want to see more of a lens I'm looking at these markets through. But in the meantime, let's get into it here this evening. What's the most important factor on the chart right now? The most important factor is this range breakout. You know, we basically spent the last couple days, and this is just a very small snippet. We had this huge range, spanning the last couple weeks here. So we basically have that big, nasty range. Again, this is just a small piece of it on the chart in front of you. Now we have this big breakdown, and this is where breakout pullbacks come in handy. This is very classic breakout patterns. We oftentimes will now use the underbelly of that trading range. Bears are not going to want to sell low in most cases, and they're probably going to want to pull back, use some of these areas here for a retest of that low. Again, kind of a classic breakout pullback. That really is the most important factor on the chart right now. Strong move down. The bears have a pretty clear bias direction now on the 60-minute. They haven't really had a lot of clarity up until today, just because they haven't seen a lot of acceleration going lower. But again, bears are pretty much well in control, at least for now. Like I mentioned before, it wouldn't totally shock me if this thing V-bottoms and rips back up into that range above us, because it is earnings season right now. But we definitely have a bear bias here. So knowing that, right? Knowing that, my favorite trade for tomorrow is I'd like to get up into some of these areas of resistance. I'd like to use something like my failure pattern, right? To trap in the buyers. And like I talk about in the free video series, right? Trap those buyers in and basically look for a short back down to retest that low. Now, I do think there are going to be some potential reversal patterns off of that low, which we'll talk about as we go deeper into the video. And there definitely is likely going to be some opportunities as we go higher to make a profit on the way higher. So I definitely do think that buyers, if you play your trading correctly, there's probably money to make on the way up and then money to make on the way down. And we'll talk about that, right? We'll kind of go over these scenarios here on the video as we go deeper here tonight. So as we go higher, right? As we go higher, what do you think is the best way to buy this thing? Anticipating this pullback, we have to anticipate, right, that as we go higher, there are probably going to be bears waiting up here, right, to short this thing back down again. So knowing that we have to deal with sellers up here, the way that you make money going higher on this is you look for bear traps, right? Bear traps, just as we talk about in the free trading course, right? A classic trap pattern, right? So if we start really, ripping higher here on the Nasdaq tonight, you'll see in a moment, the Nasdaq seems a little bit more likely for this scenario. So this can also apply on the NQ. But if we do start to accelerate going higher, right, we haven't quite run into some of these key areas yet. This is definitely the best way to make money going higher here, right? We pop up, shallow pullback, higher high in price, and as we always say in the video class, right? Traps, baby, right? So as we go higher, bear traps, right? Traps are going to be your best bet. Now, once we get up around these highs now, then we start thinking, okay, now we should start to look at the bears coming back in, right? And the challenge with these deep pullbacks, okay, the challenge with these really deep pullbacks is that this move higher can be pretty strong, right? And when you get these really strong moves like this, sometimes they keep on going. You know, like I said, there's a range above us. It wouldn't totally shock me if it kept on going back into that range. I mean, we have big earnings coming out the rest of the week this week, so it wouldn't totally shock me. It would be surprising, but it would be a total shock. So knowing that this pullback is likely going to be pretty significant, all of that momentum now for the buyers builds, we have to expect buyers are probably going to try pretty hard to keep it going at this point. So this is where we have to use a failure setup, but more of what you call a two-try failure, right? We talk about this kind of a variation in the free trading course, right? So you want to let the buyers try a couple times, right? Now, the reason why you want to let them try a couple times is because when the buyers try a couple times now their stop losses are going to be sitting right below that low. If you're a buyer and you get stopped out of a long position, how do you get out? You sell your way out. So a nice strong signal candle, right? And we can now look for that short back down to retest that low. It's a classic buyer failure pattern. It's a two-try failure because of the significance of that pullback here. And then again, as we talk about in the free trading course, think about a failure into a pullback combination. We talk about these combination setups a lot in that free video series, right? So we pop up, we trap the buyers into resistance, we use stops as fuel, and then we look for that first pullback, right? That pullback combination, which can oftentimes be right off the high of a new channel like that, all right? And again, right, it'd be a pullback setup or it could be a bull trap as well, right? Any of the patterns you guys are learning in that free video series, which reminds me, I've talked a lot about the free trading course at this point. I know that most of you guys have taken the free video series or you've taken it or you're in the process of learning these. But if you're one of the few folks right now watching who haven't learned all of these entry tactics, I'll put a link up there for you in the upper right-hand corner. Grab that link, take that free video series course, because the strategy you'll learn in that free class will show you a simple trick to know exactly where the best winning trades are going to be that day. And I'll teach you 4 of my favorite entry patterns, like failures, like traps, like pullback combinations, to help kickstart you making money. If you're missing the best trades right now, if you're not getting the consistent results that you want, definitely grab that link, take that free trading course. It'll give you an easy roadmap to follow, and it'll get you going in the right direction. And let me know how you like it, right? Because I got a lot of good feedback right now from folks who are taking it right now. Now, as we go higher, trapping those buyers in. Now, think about one more variation. I want to cover a few more scenarios on this before we jump in and talk about how to buy off that low, right? Because that reversal off that low could be pretty good for us as well. Every once in a while, we'll get these really sharp pullbacks. And then because there's so many bears up here, it just gets crushed right back down again. You know what I mean? We might not get the ability to trap the buyers in and use their stops as fuel to go back to that low. If that happens, these can be tricky. So if we make that run higher, and again, as we're going higher, right, you're looking for those bear traps, right, as we go higher. And by the way, guys, those bear traps, it could be here, it could be here. You know, really, the stronger it goes, right, the more likely they are to work as we make our way back up into that trading range. Bottom line is, if we make our way higher and we get crushed right back down again, what will oftentimes happens is it will crush back down and begin to grind down. Now, you want to remember in this situation, where is the goal? The goal is to go back and retest that low, right? The sellers, they want to sell high, ideally off kind of the underbelly of that range. They don't want to sell low, right? And so what will happen is, if it V-tops off the high like this, oftentimes it'll slip right lower, and if you're not careful, you'll chase it. You don't want to chase it going lower, because if you chase it going lower, what happens is now your risk is here, right? And your reward is right there. right? If you chase it lower, you're not going to be trading along with the smart money because the smart money won't take that trade, okay? And when you don't trade along with the smart money, you oftentimes get stopped out, right? Because you're just not in line with the bigger players in the market. When you get these V tops like this, the key to getting your risk-reward ratio back in line is to look for a trap setup. Right? Again, same idea we guys are learning in the free video series, right? Now that trap, now think about the risk reward now, okay? My risk is there and now my reward is there. Okay, that's a pretty simple illustration, right? It makes sense why that trap is a hell of a lot more desirable. And because it's more desirable, it's more reliable, right? Because the self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, now if you want to kick this up a couple notches, draw a trend line off that grinder low, up around that high. These are almost bulletproof, right? When you combine the top of that channel like that, we talk a lot about those in our trade room, right? Those pop and grind moves down. So just be aware of that. This can be tricky, right? Because you're waiting for the one that you're looking for it, but it doesn't, right? It runs lower and all of a sudden FOMO kicks in. I know I'm not the only person who had that problem when I was a new trader, right? And so you want to look for that trap, right, as we try to finish off that retest of that low. All right, guys? So I think that covers pretty much here, right? How to sell it and buy it, right? I mean, in all reality, if they just rip this thing running higher, strong run up, shallow pullback, right? Higher high in price, that could easily be that trap, right? Retest up here, and then we go 1, 2, and back down to retest a low, right? There could be easy money to make, right, on both sides of this market. But be aware of the situation, right? Be aware of the underbelly of that trading range. Now, I want to go to the Nasdaq in a moment. Before I do that, though, the Nasdaq's a little bit different than the S&P. If we were to roll over here overnight, all right, because again, we still haven't seen how the market is going to open up. We still don't know how the market will digest those. They weren't horrible earnings, but they weren't that great either, right? So things appear to be slowing down along with the signs of recession, yada, yada, yada. If we open up in Asia and we start to roll lower here, what do we do in that situation? We basically look for the same exact stuff. But now that swing high combined with now, maybe an adjusted channel here now, same idea. Right? I want to get up. I want to trap those buyers in. I want to sell back down again, right? So if we end up going lower here, we can't chase it going lower. We don't want to sell low. We want to sell high, right? And so if we end up rolling lower here, the hard part will be not chasing it. Now, again, right? If we were to roll lower and all of a sudden get that strong pop up, right? Again, you can buy off these lows with trap setups, right? Trap setups, but be aware though, right? Be aware as we get up around some of these highs, up around some of these channels, up around some of these prior areas of resistance, this is where we expect to see more bears coming in. Again, these deep pullbacks can be tricky because on a faster time frame, on the kind of trading time frame, this is 8,000 tick chart, right? We're not trading off that tomorrow in our trade room. On a faster time frame though, this can look pretty convincing for the buyers, right? But again, look at the larger picture, trap those buyers in, back down to retest the low. So not a lot changes there. If we do end up grinding lower, it's pretty much the same game plan. I just want to make sure that you know how to kind of react to that as well. Now, what if we pop up back to that low? How do we buy it, right? Could we sell it on the way down? Let's talk about that, right? Again, we have a lot of question marks going into tomorrow's trading session because of those big earnings reports. Again, digesting the earnings overnight and the big Boeing earnings tomorrow morning. How about some NASDAQ right now? All right, so NASDAQ, most important factor right now, we are an overall bear bias. This is the first time we've had a real clear directional bias for the bears in weeks and weeks and weeks. And it is really all boils down to one thing, right? There's that trading range. We have that big breakout going lower, and we have to think that prior support, prior lows are going to be seen as key areas of resistance for that run back down. Okay? So as we go higher, like I mentioned before on the S&P, bear traps, right? Bear traps are the key to success going higher. Would it totally surprise me if we slam back? It wouldn't totally surprise me because, market's pretty wild during earnings season. But statistically showing, though, right, we should be holding these areas here and back down to retest this low. And then, of course, the thing right now we have the Nasdaq is we have a pretty strong bounce right off this low. The S&P is barely there. The Nasdaq has this very strong run. So we may easily see another leg higher, jam up into these areas, right, and then back down. So just be aware, this Nasdaq may have a little bit of some wild personality to it over the next 24 hours as we kind of get through the bulk of the earnings here. Now, remember, if we go lower, right, if we go lower here, I can buy off that low, okay? Because again, strong moves, they love to be retested. Double bottom reversals are usually pretty good reversal patterns, at least in my world. If we were to go lower right now, how would you sell it, right? What would you do? Traps, right? So if we were to roll over and go lower on the Nasdaq right now, not exactly on the S&P though, right? The S&P really hasn't pulled back high enough yet, right? But if we roll lower in the Nasdaq, we know where the market wants to go. We do not, as I mentioned earlier, right? We do not want to let this thing shoot lower and chase it, right? If we chase it going lower, risk is here, reward is there. That's no bueno, okay? We don't want that, right? If we get a situation like this, you want to start thinking about, okay, where can I risk small, right? Where can I risk small to still get a decent reward? Okay, before we go back and retest the low, right? And you do that above prior swings because that's going to give you now that lopsided, right? That smaller risk. It's obviously not the perfect setup, right? The perfect thing would be selling off the high, right? But if we don't get that, the next setup, of course, is that bull trap because that's how you get, again, that's how you risk small to earn large. That's how you leverage the self-fulfilling prophecy, all right? So be aware of that if we do end up rolling over, right, and going back to that low. If we do end up back at that low, what is the game plan now to buy off that low? Well, remember, as I always try to kind of remind you guys, you want to ask yourself these two questions. How is my location and how is my momentum, right? If you can answer these two questions, you can structure the right trade to give yourself a good chance of success. So first of all, how is location? Location is great down there, right? That's a great location to be a buyer. We're at a major low. We've retested. Anytime we see a strong move down, we expect to retest. Location is great, right? Great place for a long trade. But that's all that's great, right? Momentum is not that good, right? Momentum is horrible, okay? The momentum is all bearish. And so whenever I have a good location, but I'm worried about momentum, we talked about this the last couple nights on these videos, right? What do we need to pick a bottom in a bear market? We need a major turning point. We have that. We need signs of exhaustion, right? 2-try rule. Remember that? 1, 2. And then we need some sort of catalyst. Because if we want to get this reversal, if we don't have momentum to help us, remember, momentum makes everything easier, right? Momentum makes everything easier. Without that momentum, we need some sort of catalyst. And to get that, we need stops, right? We need those sellers to all of a sudden realize they just sold right into that low. They do not have the ability to risk small to earn large. Those are rookies who sell down there. Professionals aren't selling short into that low. We know that rookies have tight stops. They have a very short fuse. They will not only exit their position quickly, but they'll flip their position quickly. Definitely don't recommend flipping positions, right? Closing one and flipping it long. If you're foolish enough to make the bad decision to sell short, don't be foolish again, right? And flip it around, right? You want to have a better understanding of the markets before then. But again, oftentimes this will flip, right? And that's the way you want to buy off of this low. Now, one thing about these you want to be aware of. If we do make a move back down to retest the low, right? We retest the low, mission accomplished, okay? Bears come in, they try once, they try twice. Now we have their stops ready to light up. If we get that, again, this would be a 2-try reversal or a crown reversal, be a trap below that prior low. Either one of them will work in this double bottom scenario. Where does the market want to go? It's going to want to go back up and take out that high. Okay? The only other scenario would be if we went below that low a little bit, there could be a channel coming down like that, right? Makes sense? So if it goes a bit through the low, right? If it was to go through the low a little bit, right? Retest the low, then we get the 1, 2, trap the bears in. The point I'm trying to make right now is the buyers are trying to take out that high. Okay, that's the high of that new range. They may have a channel coming down like that, right? So maybe tilted a little bit off the highs there. But the general idea is they want to go back to retest the high. Okay, the best trade is trapping those bears in. Then as it runs higher, okay, we talked about this kind of repeatedly the last few weeks, right? The market want to rotate back and forth. What's the best entry setup to use on the rotation? It's a trap, baby, right? So traps are always my favorite whenever we're making that rotation higher, especially if we take out a new lower low right there, because we may have a channel overhead, and that trap will be key to buying as low as you can. All right, guys? So the double bottom off the low, and again, this could easily happen as well on the S&P too. I just can't, do them both and keep the video under an hour long here on YouTube, right? But retest the low, trap the bears in, use those 2 tries to run those stops. And then if we get a nice strong jump going higher, right? Strong move up, shallow pullback, higher high. Remember, higher high is necessary for a bear trap, right? Higher high, trap low. You're learning that, right? In what? Day number 5, day number 6 of the free trading course, right? That trap, and then again, targets back up to retest the high. These oftentimes will become one big trading range. Buy off the low, trap the buyers in, sell off the high, trap the bears in, buy off the low, right? You get this, right? We talked about ranges last night. This is, you have to think another range could be brewing here, and we're buying low, selling high, right? And using failures to run those stops. All right, guys? So I think we've covered a lot of the bases here on the Nasdaq. Very curious how this pullback will look here, and I think we're ready to go. Like getting ready for Wednesday here. Over on crude oil. Now, crude oil is interesting right now. We're pretty firmly right now in the hands of the bears on the oil, on the Texas T, right, the black gold. The 60-minute chart right now looking very bearish. Short term looking pretty bearish right now. Most important clue here on the oil is the range. You guys should be experts by now on range-bound markets, which, by the way, is a good expertise to have because ranges are very easy to trade once you learn the basics here. The key right now is this triangle, right? That's kind of the key right now, right? Is the triangle. We're rotating back and forth, back and forth. Ranges love to rotate with that range in the middle as kind of the magnet. So really right now, buyers have a great shot right now to run this thing back up and retest the high. I would assume that, just as we talked about earlier, what do you think is the best trade going higher? A bear trap, right? Absolutely, it's a bear trap. And then once we get up around the highs up here, what do? You trap the buyers in and you sell into stops, right? Back down as we roll lower. What's the best way to sell it short? A trap, right? So it's the same idea. Buy low, sell high, trap traders with failures around the edges, trading the technical trap setup as we rotate back and forth here, right? So, again, as we're going higher, looking for, it's too bad, by the way, it's too bad because right now, you can see right now, strong move down, bears try once, bears try twice. They really have just a beautiful crown reversal pattern setting up, but it's just, it's too late in the day right now. You're not going to get a very good consistency out of that pattern right now. If that pattern was to trigger at 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, 11 o'clock in the morning, 9:30 in the morning, it's a pretty good trade, right? That crown reversal. See what it is, right? It's just bears try once, bears try twice, stops right there, right, for that run back up. If they do get that run higher, though, again, this is where those traps come in, right? Those bear traps going higher. And then just like we saw over here, right? Look what happens up here. They run up. What do? They pull back once. They pull back twice. Look out below, right? There's that 2-try failure pattern, right, off of that low. Let's take that pattern and put it right there. We go up. Buyers come in. They try once, lower low, try twice. Bears, of course, coming in. They want to sell right into those stops for that run back down again. All right? Now, there's always a chance, right? Always a chance that this push up is strong enough. They hold the pullback. Again, we're pretty bearish overall right now. But how would this market reverse? It would pull back to the moving average and it would jump, right? It would really jump hard off that moving average. It wouldn't do this, right? See how they try a couple times and fail? But if they try and they just rip off that moving average, okay, now we're breakout, right? Now we're breakout. Now we mark off that high. We mark off that low. And what do? We drill down, find that, right? Find that channel, and we go looking for, right, trap patterns below prior swings, failure patterns below the moving average. I'm not going to go over all the entry tactics right now, but that's the way you wait for a breakout, right? So if they would have run this thing up, held that pullback, and jumped off that moving average, remember that range above us, right? That big range above us up around 80. Again, it doesn't seem likely right now, but you're foolish not to at least put a mental game plan together if it happens, right? Why not be ready for it? And at least that's my opinion, at least. So we pop up, pull back, and jump right off that. Okay, now pop up, pull back, jump off that moving average. Okay, now that $80 overhead, that range becomes a magnet. All of that bullish momentum now, mark that high, mark that low, find that swing, right, and grab that first test of the low of that channel, right? Traps, failure patterns, right? And we're going back up into that trading range. Now, one more thing you want to be aware of here, right? Let's say they go lower. If they go lower and take out that low, then what do? We look for that same 2-try failure, 1, 2, back up into that range. That is nothing more than that double bottom reversal I just talked about on the Nasdaq. Okay, we're at a major turning point, range above us. You want to trap those bears in, use those stops as fuel, right? Grab some bear traps, right, on the way higher. This ain't rocket science, right? We're just trying to change, we're trying to trade that rotation going higher. The big variable that I see for traders tomorrow is if they keep going lower, right? Because you've got that OPEC gap filled down around 75, 63. I would definitely, if you're trading oil, I would definitely look at that 60-minute chart that I linked up in the description of the video, because that will give you a more of a bird's eye view of kind of where this thing is, right? So that 75.63, that's it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal. So if we were to, for example, really rip running lower here, now all of a sudden this area, right? That, remember, use the underbelly of that trading range, that becomes the area now for the short, okay? Now, real quickly, this is where things get a little bit fun. We have this pendulum swing off the high, right? Pendulum. So lots of support down here. So what do you think the odds are? We see a breakdown. The bears get trapped for a nice little squeeze back up, right? More aggressive buyers are buying the pendulum, buying that gap fill, but then also knowing that they better take a quick profit target on that, because the underbelly of that trading range is right there. We get back above that moving average. Buyers now are trying to go back into that range, but until we can really kind of clear that range and then get in from there, this is a great spot for a bull trap. Let the buyers try a couple times, right, and back down to retest that low. This could get pretty fun if we see a move going lower, right? I call it fun because you know what to expect, right? If you don't know what you're doing down there, it can be a bit torture, right? So, but again, as we go lower, right, if we go lower, anticipate that same basic idea we've talked about here on the Emini and the Nasdaq, right? What is support right now? If this thing just torches and runs lower, that becomes the game plan, right? Walking it back, trapping the buyers in, and back down again. And again, during that pullback, right, getting some of those bear traps are the safest way, right, to make money on that, right, on that bounce. Okay, that way you're not trying to pick that bottom. You're letting the bears try a couple times and using their stops as the fuel, right, to get off the low. And then once they get up into that area of resistance, if they keep it going, there is your reversal now, right, back up into that trading range, right? They jump off that moving average. We then find that new channel and we grab whatever entry pattern at the low. Or what is more likely, but who knows what happens, right? More likely is buyers try a couple times, they can't jam it back into the range, and stops get hit for a run back down to retest the low. All right, guys, I know that's a little more advanced, all right? I know it's a little more advanced, but all I'm doing is wrapping together all the stuff we've talked about leading up to this point in the video. All right, guys? And you'll notice, right, I use the same techniques over and over again. You know, once you kind of learn what works, you know, once that cow starts producing, right, you just keep on milking that cow, right? That's why a lot of these are very similar, right, over and over again because they work so well. Anyways, game plan is ready on the crude oil. Oil's ready, Nasdaq ready, S&P. You are also ready as well on your end. Now, tomorrow morning, grab your popcorn overnight. We could have a very busy overnight session. I will hope to see you tomorrow morning in our trade room. We open up at 8 o'clock Eastern time. As always, you can find all the free trading course links, the trade room membership links, all the higher time frames. Everything's linked up in the description below the video here tonight on YouTube. If you need any help along the way, I am always here standing by. If you have trouble getting into the free course, trouble getting anything going on your end, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call or email or use live chat. If you need help, we're here to help if you need us. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching tonight. Thank you so much for sticking around all the way to the end. Hope it was worth your valuable time tonight. Now, have a great evening. Get some rest. I will see you tomorrow morning in the members trade room, 8 o'clock Eastern time. In the meantime, be well, be nice to each other, be careful into earnings here tomorrow. And as always, be here next time. Adios, amigos. Bye-bye for now.